Happy Halloween! It's Pumpkin Garnet and Pumpkin Eggs again. Since it's spooky season, it's time for me to read another Harvest Moon creepypasta. This one is not as goofy as the last one. Alright, this one is written by ThatOnePasta on the Creepypasta Wiki. And let's get into it. The Silkie Chicken. The title itself doesn't strike fear into anyone who reads it, now does it? But if you had experienced the events that took place in the game that I had, you too would understand why it creeps me out, and why it will surely play a large factor in my decision to play any future Harvest Moon games. It was like any other weekend. My siblings and I sat together with our family at the dining table, enjoying the company of each other as our Oma, grandma, droned on and on about her trip to San Antonio, in which she went to participate in some event. When her visit reached its end, she handed us each $20 for our allowance. The four of us were thrilled to have gotten so much from her at once, since she usually gives us $10. Now, we all know how hard it is to save money when you're young. It's even harder to do when you're a gamer and you live about 5 minutes away from a game store. And you haven't stepped foot inside said store in like forever, but now looking back, I wish that I hadn't spent my money that day. It's something about stepping into GameStop that makes my heart race. I don't know if it's the smell of the store or the fact that I'm surrounded by so many great titles, but whatever the reason may be, I know I never leave that store unhappy, not even when I leave without buying a game. But on this day, I left slightly heartbroken. My youngest sibling stayed home, my little brother couldn't find his money, and my youngest sister isn't much of a gamer, so it was just me and my little sister. The chimes rang overhead as we entered the store. My sister made a beeline for the Nintendo 3DS games, since she has been saving money on the side for Tomodachi Life. I too own a Nintendo 3DS, but the game I was really after was Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Blue or Red Rescue Team, since I had played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky. I thought, why not add to the Mystery Dungeon collection with an old game, since I couldn't afford the new one for 3DS. But as I made my way to the Game Boy Advance and DS section, I noticed to my dismay that the small shelf was void of all games except for one, Harvest Moon, The Tale of Two Towns. I wasn't sure if I wanted it or not. I walked away several times but found myself going back to that game. I always loved the series ever since my mom bought Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life for the GameCube, and it seemed wrong not to take it home. Besides, I seen it in the eShop on my 3DS and pondered buying it. So, might as well, right? When it came our time to pay, I requested the Harvest Moon game. The cashier nods slightly and fetches the game. When he returns, he looks a little uneasy, but I think nothing of it at the time. He begs the games and turns to me and says in a slightly urgent tone, "You know we have a policy for these games. After 3 days, you can return it if you're unsatisfied." I found it odd since he hasn't breathed a word of this to any of the previous customers, nor has he told this to my sister, so why me? I thank him for the advice, and my sister and I leave the store. Looking back on the situation, I wonder if he was trying to tell me something about the game, and it makes me wonder if he knew something was wrong with it. Despite what happened in the store, I was anxious to play the game. After watching my sister play Tomodachi Life, I went upstairs and began to play my new game. It started as any other Harvest Moon game, a small cutscene and upbeat music before cutting to the title, displaying the name in typical Harvest Moon fashion with the main name on a wooden panel and bubble letters of the spin-off name. When I clicked A, it gave me the options to continue and new game. Naturally, I proceeded with a fresh start and proceeded with the process of picking my gender, name, birthday, and season. After which followed another cutscene of which your character is going down the road to start their new farm/ranch life and has an accident, in which the cart breaks. Your horse is hurt and your character suffers from slight amnesia and forgets which town they wanted to go to. They were later greeted by both mayors of Bluebell and Konohana. Both mayors described their towns, and I chose Konohana since it sounded like Konoha from Naruto. After a quick session on how each button worked and what button did what action, I was finally able to play the game. Unlike the other town, Konohana is well known for growing crops, while Bluebell is known for their livestock. I had my character, it's like Alex. I don't know if I can say that name every time, I'm not. But yeah, that's like Alex if it were in like katakana. I had my character Alexu spend the first day exploring and getting used to the map of the world. The next day, Arexu was taken down to the town and given a tour of Konohana by the mayor. When we arrived at the tunnel connecting the two towns, Arexu was told that the tunnel was blocked off, making a trip to the other town a long journey which required going through the mountains. After what the mayor tells Arexu, she leaves her at the tunnel, triggering the harvest goddess to appear, and she tells, "Stop saying the name Arexu, the story behind the blockade." Then we find out she blocked it because she was annoyed with the mayor's fighting, and as always, she is asking you to solve this feud yourself because she is too lazy. And we find out that the only way to stop the fighting is to enter cooking contests. Agreeing to this, I finally get to start my free play once again. I decided to buy some crops for my farm to start making money and to start preparing for the upcoming contest. I have Arexu run to Gombe's, a cute little old man who dresses in traditional Asian clothing, house, where the seeds were sold. But when Arexu reached the building, the song that was playing in the background stalled out, playing one monotonous note, and an exclamation point appeared over Arexu's head. I wasn't too sure what to think of this, but I brushed it off. Thinking it was a small glitch in the game, I moved Arexu around the shop and walked around. Everything seemed normal. The room was styled like a Japanese home with a counter in the center, and I had my character walk up to Gombe and talk to the old man. He said, "Go, it's waiting." The picture of the old man then shifted to a picture of him laughing. I wasn't sure if this was just a random comment that he makes, but it made me sit my 3DS down for a moment before continuing. I know from previous knowledge of Harvest Moon games, the characters, often say random things, but this was kind of creepy. Deciding to continue the game, I moved my character around the counter to talk to Gombe so I could purchase the seeds. And all the text box held was a single word: sobbing. I was a bit confused, so I decided to give up on the seeds and return my avatar home. Upon leaving the shop, the music I noticed played slowly and the exclamation point returned, which soon switched to the ellipses and a text box popping up saying, "I think I'm forgetting something. I should go home." My screen turned white, and when the brightness faded, my avatar was back home, standing in front of the chicken coop. The music stopped, which doesn't happen until the late hours in all Harvest Moon games. Actually, sometimes it just changes to slightly different music. Arexu walked towards the coop on her own and entered it. The screen faded to black, and only one sound rung out, and that was the clucking of a chicken. When the game visual returned, I noticed a black chicken in the coop. I hadn't bought a chicken because Konohana isn't about farm animals. The village thrives due to its crops. I sat my game down and did research about the chickens in Tale of Two Towns. What I found was that a lady named Jessica sells chickens to you at a good price, but you can obtain a free chicken if you choose Bluebell as the town to live in. But the chicken I had was only obtainable in the second year. I thought I was lucky. I didn't have to wait for the second year. I walked my character over to the book that sat on a crate in the coop. I figured it was the animal ledger that all Harvest Moons had. I was right. I noticed that they had icons of the animals you can collect and raise. The animals were sheep, cows, house pets, alpacas, owls, and chickens. The animals I didn't own were shaded blue, and I wasn't able to click on them. This included the chicken. I thought that was weird since it was in the coop. I walked my character towards the chicken and clicked A to hold it. But as I hit A, the chicken disappeared with a loud sound which sounded like a low, distorted scream. The sound caused me to jump and drop my 3DS. I stared at the screen for a moment and watched as the screen cut to black as more distorted, static-like screams filled the silence before it all ended as my character woke up the following morning. I moved Arexu around. Sounds like I'm saying erect. I moved Arexu around the house and around the farm to see if the chicken was still there, and I was relieved to see that the chicken was nowhere to be found. I proceeded to play the game normally, but I was still scared that I would have a run-in with the chicken. I decided to try and make money since I knew that is required to expand the house and to help boost friendship in this game. At one point, I had decided to try and buy seeds again from the old seed farmer Gombe. When I walked to his shop/home, the song began to jump and skip beats before stalling on one continuous note when I reached the stairs, like it had the last time I visited. Like last time, everything seemed normal until I talked to Gombe. His picture showed him laughing, but the text box read, "Beware, it comes black." forgot that said that. I was confused by this. I sort of felt like he was referring to the chicken I saw, but I dismissed it. I bought my seeds for that season and got Arexu home and began to plant my crops. But each time I planted my crops, the sound effect for the seeds being placed looped. I would have to enter and exit either the barn, my house, or the coop to make it stop. I sent Arexu to bed after saving because the whole back and forth with the looping and having to enter and exit buildings was just too much. But when the screen went to black, a text box popped up saying, "It's coming." I thought it was the harvest goddess talking, since she and the harvest sprites are known to have little moments like this, where they speak to your character implying they are dreaming. As the days passed in the game, my crops would always die and never grow, leaving me broke and without crops. I thought it was because I was in the wrong season with them, but I would always look up the crops for the current season before I bought them. Frustrated with the failed crops, I decided that it was time for a break. I saved the game, ignoring the pop saying, "It's almost here," and turned off my game. I decided that I'll try again the next day and take a different approach in the game when it comes to making money. The next morning, I decided to play the game again, but when I selected the icon for Tale of Two Towns, the screen froze. I reset the 3DS and tried again. This time, red and blue lines appeared on the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen was static. I thought it was the system, so I tried one of my apps and it worked fine. I tried loading several of my old games and they worked fine. It was only when I tried loading the game a third time it finally loaded, and it went to the title screen and the usual cute title was now jumbled symbols, and the dates that showed how long the series ran said 1629 to 1692. I stared at the date and shrugged, not thinking much of it. Yeah, those are plausible dates. I continued to play and came up with an easier plan to make money. I decided I would be better off just scavenging around the mountain, selling what I had found. Within a few hours in real life, a few months passed in the game. And like before, the mayor had visited Arexu again and told me about the ability to move to another town, and that I could always come back to this one if I ever wanted to. I thought it would be a nice change, and I would have better luck making money off my animal products since crop growing failed. I moved Arexu to Bluebell that same day, and I was thrilled because I was finally able to own animals and sell the products that they produce. That same day, I decided to save and tour the town the next day. But as I saved, I got a message saying, "Wretched girl." I wasn't sure if they were referring to me or Arexu. The next morning in the game, the mayor of Bluebell visited. When he visited, all that his text said was, "You wretched girl." The avatar image of him was one of him angry. He said nothing more as he turned away from Arexu and left her home. Time in the game passed fairly quickly as I had the tunnel slowly cleared out and as I entered the food contest to build up the friendship levels of the mayors, and before I knew it, I had filled all the hearts for the mayors. The next day in the game, there was a cutscene. The screen was black and white font appeared saying, "You serve him. We all serve him." Then it faded to white and showed my character in the house where the old lady from Konohana appears, telling me to go to the mountain. Another cutscene followed and Arexu was at the mountain. Both mayors were at the edge as the villagers from both towns stood nearby. The son of the mayor from Konohana shouted something, but the text was distorted. The mayors looked at one another and then to the crowd, when suddenly little speech bubbles appeared over their heads showing skulls. The crowd then had exclamation points over their heads as the mayor stepped forward, causing the crowd to step backward at this point. No music was playing in the game, nor was there any sound. And the mayors kept advancing, and as soon as they reached the crowd, the screen glitched, showing me a red screen. I was about to reset the game when a soft sound was heard coming out of the speakers. It sounded like laughing, but before I could really make out what the sound was, it cut to the credits. The game was over, and as the credits rolled, a slow, eerie version of Ring Around the Rosie played out. Notes would occasionally be skipped, and often the sounds of the faint child chuckles could be heard. The names that were scrolling through I never seen listed before in any Harvest Moon games, or with Natsume or Nintendo. The names that were listed seemed like old names from long ago. I don't remember all the names, but I know they all sounded familiar. I know I read or heard about them from somewhere. The screen then faded to black, and then the text box opened saying, "Continue?" with the option of yes and no. I clicked yes. The game flashed, then crashed with the screen fading to black, and it froze on the black screen with the words, May God bless them. I was done at that point. I believe in God and I love him, for my parents taught us about the holy book, but this game seemed evil in a way and I didn't like. I wanted nothing more than to throw it away and save someone else the trouble of dealing with this game. I told my friend about it on my DeviantArt account and he said he wanted to film the game to stick on YouTube. I reluctantly agreed, but each time we tried to record it, the game and system would appear to be off. We tried with many different cameras and it all resulted in the same outcome. He told me I should try playing it again and I reluctantly agreed. The game this time around started normally, no freak startups or mess-ups. In the game it was year 2 and I had decided to add to my livestock since my Jersey cow Annie and normal cow Hanji and my sheep Marco. I see. We're doing so well, occasionally producing gold items. I decided to add to my chickens because I always needed eggs for some odd reason and I don't actually know how to pronounce that. Ymir? Tawny and Krishna were producing a lot and I just needed more. I had Rexu head over to Jessica's livestock and talk to Jessica. Instead of her usual message of, "Welcome to Jessica's livestock," she said, "If they float, then they're..." The screen then cut to the livestock list. I extolled down and was thrilled to see she had a new animal, but I immediately felt dread when I realized what kind of animal it was. She had the Silkie Chicken in stock. My friend told me to go ahead and buy it. He said he highly doubts it's the same chicken. I had to agree with that, and I decided to buy the chicken. I named the chicken Connie. It made Rexu go back to the farm. When she entered the barn, Connie had a skull icon above his head, meaning he was sick. I was confused. In previous Harvest Moon games, you were always given healthy animals. Heck, my other animals came healthy. I had Rexu run back to the store, and I bought animal medicine and used it on Connie. The next day in the game, I woke up only to find that Marco, my sheep, had died and that Connie was sick again. I bought medicine and used it on Connie. I also noticed that everyone I had high friendship levels with had gone down, but I figured it was like in Harvest Moon Save the Homeland, how everyone is mad at you for the day telling you to be more careful. Well, the next day, Rexu wakes, only to find that one I don't know how to pronounce had died and Connie was once again sick. This happened over and over until all my farm animals had died except Connie. Connie was now healthy and would eat and run about. I noticed that my pets, Erwin, Levi, Big and Little Dog, Japan, Cat, and Kohaku, Owl, wouldn't eat or go outside anymore. It wasn't until the following day that they were nowhere to be found. It was like the game erased them. The same thing happened to Cam, the florist, and the character I was trying to marry. I wasn't sure what to think. I stopped playing the game and went to game FAQs and asked them. Bought a chicken and it was sick. The next day and those that follow, my livestock died except for one, my chicken I had bought. My livestock were just a year old and the bachelor I am trying to marry, Cam, is gone and it's not the days he's out of town. Okay, I'm gonna have to see if that's a real thing. Also, wow, that was hard to read. I never got a response to the thread, so I took it down. I decided that I would sell Connie. I went to Jessica and she wasn't there. I tried every time, every day she was just gone. I decided to talk with Ash, even though he doesn't sell or buy animals, but he was gone too. I decided to check the entire village. I had Rexu check all the buildings and all the houses, but they were void of people and animals. I then had her run to the other village. But when I got there, the screen cut to black, and text popped up saying, "They're dead, with their rings around their rosies, and pockets full of posies." Then another cutscene showing Rexu. She stood facing the river, and the music that was playing stopped. Behind her, Connie appears, and walks up before running towards Rexu, before the screen cuts to black. Only the clucking of a chicken can be heard, and the screen says, "The end. Your trial ran from 1629 to 1692. And that's at the end. That's the end of the pasta. And so I was looking at the comments and to try and figure out about the dates. And where's the comments? One person is saying that they think they're referring to the Salem witch trials, which would fit the second date when that started, but it doesn't explain the first one. But then someone else said, let's see, there it is. Yeah, they were wondering about the dates. So they looked up and they found out that there was an Italian plague in 1629. So there are two things that happened on each of these years, but it doesn't really explain why it's like from this year up until this other year, right? Like from the plague date to the witch trial date. That doesn't really make sense to me. So is there something else that like was between these really specific years, or did they think just like switching these numbers around would look scary? I don't know. But there you go. That's the only thing I can come up with, is what other people came up with. So that was the Silkie Chicken. What do you think? It's significantly less goofy than the one I read last year. I read The Unnamed Cow. Both times I read like mysterious animal pops up and kills everyone. Were any of the others like that? I can't remember what I've read already before. I've read every Harvest Moon creepypasta I could find, but I don't remember them all very well, so I was caught by surprise by a couple of these lines. I hope you enjoyed this video, this little story. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. My Patreon and Twitter, I'm not calling it X, are in the description. And I'll see you in the next video. Happy Halloween!